Hey, everybody. Really excited today to dive into how Digi is shaping the future of IoT, AI at the edge, and so much more. Ron, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Evan. How about you?
I'm great. Really excited for this chat. I mean, Digi International has been around for, gosh, 4 decades. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, our 40th birthday this fall.
That's phenomenal. I trust you were not there at the beginning, but maybe talk about your background and how you have evolved from a connected devices company into a full IT stack, IoT stack solutions provider.
Yeah. I'll give you kind of a brief history of my journey because every leader is, horribly biasing their company's trajectory, and I'm no different. So I'll start off. I was born 7 pounds 6 ounces with very no, I'm joking, of course, but so I actually out of college, I got into consulting and was a wonderful time. I got a chance to get exposed to different industries, financial services, manufacturing, energy, uh, computers, and really fell in love with wireless communications in particular. And you have these times in your life where you have these epiphanies, and I had one of these that we're going to be sending data over wireless. We're not going to be using it for voice applications. And the pendulum swung for me extremely hard from consulting and advising companies to starting a company. And you may have heard this before, but there's some good research that says that one of the greatest times to start a company is between 25 and 35 because you're experienced enough to avoid like obvious pitfalls, but you're actually stupid enough to think you can do it. And so I started a company in fleet management called PeopleNet, and we provided onboard computers to North American truckers. Eventually sold that business to Trimble and stayed on there for 3 years and helped build their transportation logistics practice and was looking for my next opportunity. And Digi came up. I'm a native from Minnesota. Digi's a well-known local company, and I've got 3 daughters I really wanted to keep in the same school system. So I wasn't prioritizing being a public CEO, but saw an opportunity to really take a company with a rich history of providing incredibly reliable, secure, long-lasting, easy to manage, and scale globally edge-based intelligence, and transform Digi into more of a solution provider that still leverages that amazing 4-decade history in providing reliable and secure hardware, but adding software, services, connectivity to help our customers achieve their objectives more quickly. And no surprise, this journey has been heavily influenced by my fleet management experience, right? And if you think about fleet management, it's the granddaddy of IoT applications. It's the largest, it's the most pervasive globally. You've got this incredibly important edge device that oftentimes interfaces with the driver, interfaces with the computer in the truck to get miles per gallon to enable e-driver logs, provides a critical connection to both dispatch as well as their shippers and receivers. Reliability, security, it's got to last a long time. It's got to suffer some pretty demanding environments and perform. And that's really an inspiration for what we're doing at Digi. I wanted to avoid, a second act in fleet management. So we're now into condition monitoring and some other applications that we think will be the next granddaddy of IoT in terms of size and scale. But that's really, that's really a summary of what's been going on here. And I joke that I'm addicted to these more solution-based businesses because they oftentimes have, subscription contracts, which generates recurring revenue. And I joke that I'm addicted to recurring revenue and I'm not in treatment or am I taking any medication? I'm owning this addiction.
That's awesome. Usually, as a tech and wireless geek, I dive right into technology, which we'll do. But you actually talk about services as a differentiator, and say that it's undervalued in IoT. So maybe talk about that first. How do you blend technology with services to ensure that this stuff actually works in the field?
Evan, I think you've probably experienced it throughout your lifetime. Service is hard to buy. It's easier to experience it. And so sometimes selling service has to be more of a sleight of hand, right? And so we embed 24/7 care into our offering. It's not called out as a separate line item. But I firmly believe in this area of the world that we work in, industrial, sort of, heavy business and mission critical technology, that service is a key differentiator. I think, struggle to get service nowadays. I have to gear up to call a company if I want to try to talk to their customer service group, because I know I'm going to take a long time to get through the IVR. they're going to really force me to some kind of chat-based solution. And it's like, hey, if I knew that it could be solved via chat, I wouldn't have called in, right? But I'm actually, I'm hitting your relief valve here. I need to talk through a non-standard issue. And our business is full of non-standard issues. And it's not good enough for us to just understand how our products and services and software work. It's how does it work for you? So tell me about the context. Tell me about the application. Tell me about the outcome that you're looking to achieve. And so I think it's less break fix. It's more, how do we get to that outcome together? And oftentimes our technology is interacting with a variety of other technology. And it's critical that we help be the glue that gets all that system connected and working.
Brilliant. So, of course, AI is having its moment, and also at the edge, where edge intelligence, the far edge, is really having its moment as well. Talk about how you're leveraging AI to deliver, unique insights and automation directly at the device level.
Yeah, we, like a lot of companies, are getting tremendous value in AI in terms of our administrative functions and processes. But I think, to your point, one of the more exciting opportunities, and it's probably got a longer fuse to it, is these small language models. We are in a lot of remote equipment. The process today is we're generally connecting to the computer inside that elevator, generator, solar farm. We're then storing that data and then communicating it to our customers' back office systems. Those could be in the cloud, they can be on-prem, variety of both. And then they're doing some magic to say, well, based on the information I've received from the field, I'm going to ask a person or a machine, hey, what do you think we should do? And all of that, I think, will be placed on the edge. And you'll be making real-time decisions as to whether to change the configuration, whether to update software, or whether to initiate a truck roll from that edge-based intelligence. It won't be this sequential, I'm going to transmit the data back to some central headquarters that'll make that decision in either human or automated format, and then tell that third party. Right now, for example, within our Smart Sense group, we have enough information on refrigerated equipment that many of our customers are allowing us to open a service ticket when needed and to close it.
Wow.
So we don't rely on the service tech to say they solved the problem. We're asking that machine and making sure that machine is healthy. So it's that trust but verify thing. So that can happen without any human intervention, right? Versus you're telling a pharmacist or a retail employee that may be not engaged to make these steps that all could be automated without having to rely on that field resources, either because they're too busy or they're not aware or they just don't prioritize.
Got it. So I think the word resilience is sort of the word of the decade, personally and professionally, but also in connectivity. It's not just connectivity is nice to have. It's become mission critical, life or death in some cases. How do you think about resilience, both to the device, to your operations, your data centers, and so forth?
It's interesting, and I couldn't agree with you more. Resilience has become kind of the decade's word, if you will. But I think about resilience. I think the context is that we are, I think, as a society, experiencing a tremendous amount of change, and that velocity is increasing. And that change comes in all different formats. It can be technology-based change. It can be regulatory change, like we're seeing now with tariffs and other things, right? It can be business opportunities and challenges. And the key is the ability to adapt to that change, which enables that word resiliency, and the ability to not only make sure that your device can survive changing conditions, whether they be wireless, whether they be regulatory, whether they be opportunities and challenges in business processes, is very, very critical. Now, there's some things in life, as you know, that are possible to change remotely, like going from, say, a 4G to a 5G radio. But there are tons of things that can be adapted to via software changes, whether they be configurations or complete software updates. I've had my now second Tesla. I know Tesla and Elon Musk have become a little bit bad word, but I had like VIN number 10,000 of Tesla, and the idea that a cellular radio would be in your car and that your interface would be able to change, and that Tesla could avoid having you drive your vehicle into a dealership to deal with a recall. I mean, that is, if that's not compelling, I don't know what is. I've got probably the fanciest ice machine I've ever bought in my life, and it produces beautiful ice. And about a month in, it goes kaput, right? And so again, I'm gearing up to call the company to give me some help. And and this is not a connected machine. And they come out, a tech comes out to look at it. It's like, oh, it looks like it's a motherboard that's gone bad. I don't have the part with me. You'll have to come back. It actually ended up being 3 truck rolls, but I mean, there's no way they made money on that ice machine, right? Versus that ice machine being connected and being able to tell you, hey, here's what's going on, right? And to your point, the comms piece has to be treated differently, because if comms is relying on the motherboard and the motherboard is the problem, now, that thing's no good, right? And so you have to have that resiliency built into the system. Our console server business, OpenGear, has what's called smart out of band networking. And the number one rule in networking is don't rely on the network to troubleshoot the network. Go out of band. So many of our customers use cellular, sometimes another wireline-based connection, so they can access the console server to access then that footprint of IT technology, whether that be edge at a store, at an office, or in the cloud in a data center or an AI facility. But that's an example of that resilience, is thinking through these redundant ways and these less dependent ways to make sure that you have that remote presence, even when in some cases power goes out. Our SmartSense gateways have batteries that allow it to have a certain amount of last gasp before they run out of juice. And many of our customers rely on us to tell them that a store has lost power.
Interesting. So you mentioned a lot of wireless technologies. We're all, as consumers and businesses, kind of spoiled for choice now when it comes to the network. We got LTE and 5G and hybrid satellite, of course, coming online. So many options. How do you maybe simplify all those choices?
Yeah,
leveraging all the networks out?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I kind of break it down into wide area and local area. I know that's a little bit primitive, but we are big cellular people. We think cellular is like this mega trend. It's bigger, badder than anything else. And I'm old enough that I've seen a lot of upstarts try to compete against cellular and really struggle. I don't know if you remember RAM, Bell Mobile, Mobitex, Motorola had their own system, and some other standards, even within cellular, like CDPD, had very short lives. So, but we like cellular as a mega trend. Satellite is still, in my mind, a niche service. Now, satellite's improving as it's becoming more integrated with ground-based technology. But I still think ground-based technology has the advantage for most applications. Certainly marine and remote forest or other types of things, that those are going to be more difficult for cellular, but those are kind of niche applications. So we think cellular is really the dominant play. And I like being elegant. I don't want to make it any harder than it needs to be. I can tell you a quick story. I'm big into golf, and I've got all girls. And so I try to infect my girls with the game of golf. And so I brought them out to see a ladies golf tournament. And at the time, Hannah, my 5-year-old, is like, Dad, why is there sand on the golf course? And I was reaching my fatherly moment. I'm like, that's a sand trap. Some people call it a bunker, and you don't want to go in there because it's harder to get a good score. And she looks at me with such sincerity. She said, Daddy, why would they make it harder? And I say that to my team all the time. Don't make it harder if it doesn't have to be, right? So there's a lot of elegance and simplicity. So we are very cellular oriented for wide area. Now, local area is a much more complex thing because you've got Wi-Fi, Zigbee, Bluetooth, LoRa. There's a lot of different options for local based network. And it's a combination of range, how much data you want to send, and then how many wireless sensors or nodes do you have out there. So it is a more complex decision. LoRa has very good range and noise, overcomes a great amount of noise, but it's we call it data dribbler, right? It can only send small amounts of data. So meter-based applications, condition monitoring can be really good for LoRa. But if you're going to send larger amounts of information, LoRa is just not going to work for you. But we try to work with our customers to make sure that we're both context appropriate, but also we don't make it any harder than it needs to be, because we got to keep this stuff up and running. In every radio, you got to think through that resiliency.
Fantastic. Let's talk security, which has been the bane of IoT really from the beginning. Lots of, terrible stories, mainly in the home environment around loose, lax security by design. Yeah. I think we're coming a long way, but what's your philosophy around staying secure, compliant, especially in regulated environments in which you're working a lot.
Yeah, we've got, first of all, security, as you mentioned, has been, increasingly challenging to keep pace with. Unfortunately, there's enough, bad actors out there that can monetize these things. And boy, I think we're all desensitized to the latest company who's been hacked, and all of our customer information's out there, right? And with IoT, it's much more subtle because you're not going to get customer information out of IoT device. You're going to get access. So we're really a vulnerability point if we're not properly managing it to get access to a much bigger and broader system. So we treat security with the utmost care. We are designing it in at the hardware level in addition to software level. We are constantly managing and looking for CVEs. We are scanning the globe through subscription services and our own efforts. We've got dedicated security officers both at the corporate level as well as in the businesses to make sure that any critical vulnerabilities are addressed. And we have a weekly security and quality meeting where we're going through any potential issues that are either open or have been resolved, anything that's been reported. So we then complement that with a broader security setting where we're ISO 27001 and SOC 2 compliant, which gives a lot of customers and prospects comfort that not only we secure, but a third party can, accredit our security status. Because I think it's important for a customer to make sure that their critical vendor doesn't just say they're secure, but has the accreditation to prove it.
Brilliant. So you're much more than connectivity. Leveraging all that juicy data at the edge is really powerful now, especially with these embedded AI models you're deploying. Maybe talk about what's possible now with that data and what are your customers doing with it?
Yeah, it's a really, I would call it a slow motion success story because there are all these small pockets of very, very valuable and private information. Our customers don't want this information out in the wild, right? They don't want a competitor to see it, and maybe even a prospect or maybe even their service partners. So you've got to really work with companies that were kind of in this early stage of both getting the data to the point where it can be leveraged by AI, and then thinking about these use cases that can deliver that value, right? So let's take an example of an elevator, right? We've got many customers where we're the communication device inside that elevator, both providing emergency voice services, but also connecting to that elevator's computer to make sure that we're examining fault codes, being able to change configurations, and even update the software of the computer on that elevator. Wow. And we're working with them to say, hey, listen, let's incorporate some of that knowledge. Let's get it standardized so that what's the right AI tool to use? Let's practice it in the cloud first before we try to domesticate it to the point where it can be put into an edge device. And then we've got to put containers in there in that edge device to make sure that the customer's application, they feel that's secure. And it's also an area where Digi is not, causing any problems with collisions and inference. So it's a slow motion success story. It really is. And if you think about our customers, which are global, you've got every degree of maturation in their AI process, right? In terms of their understanding. But the key for us, Evan, is always like, what's the outcome you're going to look to achieve? Are you going to have fewer truck rolls? Are you going to have higher uptime? What is the outcome? And then let's make sure we measure it. What's our baseline right now so that we can understand by implementing this model what we can get to? And is the implementation effort and cost a tenth or less of the value that you expect to receive, right? So we want to make sure we've got that strong business case, that it's very motivating. There's a pot of gold at the end of that technology rainbow. And then we can go after the technology assessment. We see a lot of times, Evan, people kind of jump to the technology assessment. And you got to make sure there's this real exciting, opportunity that if you're successful can be very, very rewarding. And that's a key part of, I think, our role is making sure that we're not just stuck in the lane of the technology enablement, but helping people through those business models. But it's an exciting future. I think there's so much more to come here with leveraging AI, leveraging new technologies. Everything's getting better, cheaper, faster. And I think that unlocks a lot more business opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when it comes to areas like predictive maintenance. You love your ice machine example. Why couldn't you predict a failure of a part or a battery for operational efficiency reasons? Digital twins are becoming a big deal. What are your, I was in Vegas this week and it seemed like half the escalators weren't working at any given time. And I'm thinking, why is that? That just seems such a no-brainer for IoT
Yeah.
and operations. But how are you seeing these opportunities evolve in your customers?
Yeah, I think an underrated part of I think keeping things up and running is that there are humans that are needed to go out to either
Mm.
service or repair, and those jobs are getting tougher and tougher and tougher to fill. I
Oh,
think
wow.
it's not as desirable, especially right now. Immigration is very contained, and a lot of times immigration takes up some of these roles, right? So keeping these systems up and running is so critical, and I think one of the underappreciated things of having a connected device is feeding the performance information of that existing technology into the next generation,
Mm.
right? That allows you then to have more reliability, resiliency, uptime. Uh, our building in the office here, embarrassingly, to your point, we have 4 elevators. It is rare that more than one or two are working.
Wow.
I mean, it's rare, and it's a bit of a running joke. It just seems like there's somebody always here. Now that seems like a design or a maintenance issue, but we can't tolerate that level of performance and be expecting to succeed, right? As a company or a society, right? So I think having that edge intelligence is going to unlock so much value, and one of the biggest could be, feeding the performance information into that next generation design.
Fantastic opportunity. So much to be excited about. What excites you over the next year or two with all this emerging technology that you're leveraging and the investments you're making?
Yeah, so I think with the amount of technology coming to market, a lot of these things, again, in the industrial world, because the IoT is so fragmented, even things like 5G we've scratched the surface on 5G.
Mm.
5G radios are still really expensive from an IoT
Mm.
perspective. So to give you a feel, you could buy a 4G cellular radio for $20. A 5G radio today still is like $100.
Oh, wow.
And that's just the radio, right? And the red cap will come out. That'll bring it down to at least 80. But we have a lot of ways to go with just getting 5G domesticated to the point where it can be leveraged. And this is going to become a big issue over the next 5 years, because you're going to see the carriers start to farm that 4G spectrum and move it over to 5G. And 4G applications won't necessarily be shut down in 5 years, but you're going to see the carriers stop approving new devices. Then they're going to stop, activating devices. And so getting that 5G train, is really important for customers. There's a lot of exciting things going on in local wireless too, where we play a big role. I don't know if you've heard of standards like YSUN. YSUN is an emerging standard. It's particularly useful for solar farms and renewable type projects where you're supporting a large amount of nodes over a pretty great distance. And you want a real reliable standard that can keep those panels tracking the sun throughout the day and making sure that you're getting optimal energy output. So there's a lot of exciting opportunity out there. And I think we're limited mainly by really good business cases, not necessarily the technology.
Well, it's an exciting thought, and congratulations on all the success so far. Onwards and upwards.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think when we're
Thanks.
successful, we're a 100% solutions company. We got about 35% of our revenue that we attribute to solutions, up from zero when I joined 10 years ago. So we've ourselves have been a evolving story, but I think when we get to 100%, solution revenue, we've made it.
It'd be amazing to watch. Thanks, Ron. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Evan.
And thanks everyone for listening, sharing this episode, watching, and check out our new TV show now on Fox Business and Bloomberg, techimpact.tv. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, everyone.